Lots going on with the 49ers OTAs. Trey Lance slinging the rock all over the place. A more svelte, slimmed down version of Aaron Banks. Is he ready to take over that starting left guard job that was left vacant by the free agency exit of Laken Tomlinson? And another award coming down for 49ers defensive lineman Arik Armstead. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. We are your hosts, Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker. If you don't know us, NFL analyst, co-host of the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, along with Eric Crocker, former AFL and NFL cornerback. We're coming at you daily here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And by the way, thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is what we do, Monday through Friday, talking about your San Francisco 49ers. And it's not been a dull year talking about those San Francisco 49ers, has it, Croc? And they're on the field right now. At least some of the 49ers are on the field. We'll get to who's actually in and out of OTAs, but it's nice to see some actual real storylines of actual football with guys running around and practicing. So we have something to talk about that's football related instead of all the other stuff that goes on seemingly nonstop for the 49ers right now with all the dramatic events and holdouts and who's playing quarterback, who's getting traded, who's not, who's QB1. I think it's nice for fans, and it's definitely nice for me as an analyst and someone who covers this team to actually start talking about some guys and what they're doing on the field.
Right. Especially Trey Lance. I mean, that's a polarizing guy right now in the 49ers organization, and not just for the 49ers. I mean, this is a guy who's being talked about, I feel like, every talk show. And a lot of, I don't even want to say pushback, but almost like not even giving the young kid a chance. I mean, guys are just like, he ain't it. You know, you're seeing those narratives kind of pushed throughout the media, but it feels like all the members of the San Francisco 49ers, including the players, and now some beat writers as well, they pretty much think the complete opposite.
Look, the 49ers clearly sell on a national level too. So anytime you can come in and say something about the 49ers, it gets clicks, it gets listens, it gets watched on whether it's YouTube or on TV. So the 49ers are filtered through often. And what's the story with the 49ers? And we've talked about it a little bit before on the show. I think for the national media, it's just really low-hanging fruit with Jimmy Garoppolo still on the roster. It's like, oh, then nobody's sold. Somebody said a bad thing, and we're just going to regurgitate some report that some ex-coach said about Trey Lance and the reports we're getting from practice right now, which is what we should be hearing about Trey Lance because he's so physically talented. So he's throwing the rock all over the place, and he's impressing his teammates. He's impressing coaches. He's impressing onlookers that are watching him throw the ball. And how could he not with how big and strong and fast he is, and even some Mahomes-like off-platform sidearm throws apparently at OTAs on Wednesday. So that's exciting stuff. Actually, I want to go to a quote from one of, if you don't believe beat writers or if you don't even believe the coaches and everything that is positive that is said about Trey Lance amongst a lot of the negative, this seems to be coming out as well from folks who weren't around the team. How about this quote from Talanoa Hufanga, who has to defend Trey Lance in practice? He said, quote, "Man, that dude can sling the rock. I'll tell you that. Trey has been tremendous. Being a rookie with him was awesome. Getting to see his insight as a quarterback and what he can do on the field is outstanding. Love to go against that competition." So at least one other guy going into his second year and vying for a starting spot on the San Francisco 49ers is pretty impressed with Trey Lance.
Right. One of my biggest takeaways from this whole, kind of OTA, and especially with the media, and obviously it's only been 2 days, or 2 days as far as the media being able to watch practice, but there haven't been the bad reports, right? Like now, one day it could be, well, he just, threw the ball well that day, and okay, there's the check downs and et cetera. But okay, now it's 2 days now that they've seen, and you're seeing kind of this pattern of Trey Lance continuously getting better. And it sounds like they put a little bit more on his plate in the sense of pushing the ball downfield a little bit more and trying some riskier throws. Sounds like he was up for the task as well, making some difficult throws. throughout practice, and then you see the response from not just, like you said, guys like Talanoa Hufanga or D'Amico Ryans and some of the things that he's had to say. And some of the even guys that I listened to and try to get their insider guys that were there, that they're going to be straight shooters with everything that they've seen. And so far, I think my biggest takeaway is there hasn't been the bad. There hasn't been like, oh man, like, well, he still looks raw here, or, oh no, I think he'll have trouble here. It sounds like right now that Trey Lance, I think he's kind of coming into his own, and there's probably that big kind of confidence boost. The more he does it, the more he hears people, his teammates, his coaches, everybody come to, I don't even think to his defense, but just, hey man, like this kid is like, he's heading in the right direction. I think those things give him confidence. And now he's a guy that doesn't have to play as tight as we saw him play last year, and maybe even early in OTAs as well.
Yeah, playing loose, playing fast, those would be really important things for Trey Lance. And of course, it's different when live bolts are flying and you're on the field and you're playing against, a full defense and a full defensive line that's trying to come at you in practice, that or even in games and in preseason games, and guys that can actually hit you, guys that are trying to hit you. So, we'll see. So whether it's good or not in practice right now doesn't really mean anything, and you can't really put a stamp on what Trey Lance is going to be, but it's just nice to get some positive reports and the things you should be hearing about Trey Lance. And especially now, it would be kind of worrisome if people who were straight shooters that were watching him in practice were like, oh gosh, yeah, it's kind of ugly right now. But a guy that talented should look good, and we should be hearing the same things about Justin Fields and about Zach Wilson and about Trevor Lawrence, right? Because they're physically gifted guys, and in this part of the offseason, they should be looking really well in shorts, throwing against air in a lot of cases. So you can't really take too much from it, but it's good to get some more positive vibes and not this nonsense about arm fitness and whatnot.
Well, I think for Trey Lance, the difference between him and some of these other guys is it almost felt like people just thought he can't really play the quarterback position. And so the fact that he's going out and he's kind of putting those things to rest. And now I think it can transition into just like, okay, well, how many games can they win with this quarterback? I think he's heading more into that kind of conversation with what he's doing in the offseason. Again, like you said, take a lot of this with a grain of salt. Like he can't be rushed by pass rushers, right? There's no like real time clock going off there. You can't be sacked and all that other stuff. So he is a little bit more comfortable, but I think he's doing a lot of things that you at least want him to see. You want to see him doing at this stage, and then just continue to see, can he keep building on top of that.
I want to talk a little bit about the players who are and are not at practice for the San Francisco 49ers. And one player who is at practice in Aaron Banks, who by all reports is in really good shape and is competing for a starting offensive line spot at left guard. And it's a big vacant hole that was left by a really reliable player in Laken Tomlinson in the offseason, who left as a free agent to the New York Jets. And Arik Armstead gets another award based on things for the most part off the field, but somewhat on the field as well. We'll talk a little bit about Arik Armstead and where he's come as a true pro for the San Francisco 49ers over the course of his career. But first, I want to let the folks out there know about Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping. That's what you can find at BlueNile.com. At BlueNile.com, you can celebrate all of life's special moments. You can create that special engagement ring of her dreams. Gift that classic and timeless jewelry piece. All prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And when you're talking about fine jewelry, there's really two main categories. You're talking about wedding jewelry, engagement rings, and wedding bands, and then everyday fine jewelry. And if you're shopping for somebody special in your life, gemstone necklaces, cocktail rings, diamond jewelry, you can find all of it at BlueNile.com. The best part to me about BlueNile.com, and this isn't the thing that I'm good at shopping for, but if you want to find something special for that special person in your life, whether it's your mother or your future bride, right? And you're looking for that fine jewelry and having trouble choosing, BlueNile.com has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. And it's really important that they have that for a lot of folks out there, I'm sure, that are listening that don't know exactly what they're even looking for when they're shopping for that type of gift. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On 49ers listeners can get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings as well. So use code Locked On. That is promo code Locked On to get that $50 off purchases of $500 or more. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. For your second listen, check out all that the Locked On Network has to offer. The Locked On Sports Today podcast, the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, Locked On NFL Draft featuring my co-host here, Eric Crocker. And also, we have an important favor to ask of you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite podcast on Locked On Network even better. So this is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about the Locked On podcasts you listen to. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey right now. Won't take very long, and everyone that can fill out the survey and completes it can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. So to take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey, and we appreciate your help on that. All right, Croc, before we get to Aaron Banks, I just want to talk about the players really quick that are practicing and are not practicing. And is it me, or does it seem like more and more, and it's not just a 49ers thing, more and more around the league, veterans are just like, hey, you know what? These OTAs aren't super important, so I'm just not going to show up.
Well, you remember just, a couple years ago, the 49ers had like 100% participation.
Yeah.
And right now, they are far under that. I mean, then obviously, like, you knew Deebo Samuel wasn't going to show up, but you expect the other guys to. And there's no Nick Bosa. And we know, okay, you don't think about it because you know he's doing his thing out in Florida with his brother. But, again, they've previously had 100% participation, and that is not the case right now.
Not at all. And, like, I don't even want to see necessarily Nick Bosa out there or George Kittle out there or Trent Williams out there getting hurt in practices either. But there's a leadership aspect of it that, you know, they could maybe be passing things on to other players like Aaron Banks, you know, the guy that might be lining up next to Trent Williams. Maybe he could be learning some things from him, even if he's not padded up or even if he's not practicing at all. You know, maybe as he runs off the field, he's telling him stuff. So I think there is some benefit for the team to have everybody show up, but it's much worse for them to show up and get hurt than to not show up at all, right? So Jimmy G, obviously, we know his situation was not at practice. Deebo Samuel, not expecting either one of those guys to show up to any of the offseason stuff. Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, Alex Mack, we still don't know if he's retiring or not. Javon Kinlaw, interesting. After what happened last time at OTAs was not around, and it's probably a good thing that he's not live and in person there with any reporters. George Kittle and seen but not on the field apparently, so they are in the building in some capacity. Fred Warner, Elijah Mitchell, and Azeez Al-Shaair. So most of the 49ers star players not practicing right now, and even some other players that you would expect to see on the field that might need some reps, like a couple of rookies. Ty Davis Price not present on the field apparently. Danny Gray was not on the field as well, both the 49ers third-round picks. Jordan Willis, Daniel Brunskill, Tarvarius Moore, and Mike McGlinchey apparently was watching practice and not on the field, but we expected him with his injury and his recovery to not be practicing. So to put it another way, we'll go to Matt Barrows, who tweeted about it, and he said that rather than list the 49ers who did not take part in OTAs, it might be easier to list the clear or largely clear week one starters who did participate. It's not a long list. Arik Armstead, Dre Greenlaw, Jimmy Ward, Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk, and Kyle Juszczyk. Those are pretty much the important starting players for the 49ers that are right now at OTAs. So a lot more starters are out than are in at OTAs for the Niners.
Right. And did you say Jason Verrett, right?
Jason Verrett, I saw, was rehabbing his injury on the side.
Okay, but he's rehabbing. All right.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's pretty significant.
Right.
A guy who tore his ACL. Now, again, he did tear his ACL fairly early in the season. I mean, week one, didn't even finish the game. So I'd assume that he'll be full go by training camp. But right now, I probably want to take things easy, especially with his injury history.
What do we think about Aaron Banks? I know we had a hugely disappointing rookie season for a guard that's drafted in the top 50. That's the type of player that's supposed to come in and be plug and play and be a starting impact player for you right away. You don't draft an interior offensive lineman in the top 50 if you don't think that highly of him. Now, he still has that opportunity in 2022, especially with Lake and Tomlinson gone. There is a wide open, gaping starting spot on the offensive line that maybe the 49ers haven't had in recent years that can be won by somebody, and getting the first reps and opportunity for that in practice so far has been Aaron Banks. But one of the big things for Banks, and so, Croc, we go back a year, and we were talking about our scouting reports almost exactly a year ago, right? When you actually, hold on a second. Is it the 1 year anniversary for Eric Crocker today?
June 1st? Is, huh? I didn't even think about that. June 1st.
Yeah. Congratulations, Croc. 1 year as co-host, officially a member of the Locked On 49ers podcast.
Eric Crocker, always around the football at that time, made a great catch.
Yeah. Congrats, Croc. Thanks for joining me here. It's been awesome having you here for the last year.
Yeah, it's been awesome being on it and learning and growing from one of the best in the building, in the business. I mean, just in general. Let's go.
Yeah, heck yeah. So I think on that very first podcast, we got deep into prospects, and I'd already talked about prospects a lot before you jumped in, but our scouting reports were very similar, and that's what happens a lot. And I always talk about it. The scouting part, I think, is easy, and I think we get it right a lot more than we get it wrong. And we independently watch players a lot and come back with a lot of the same notes. Sometimes a little different. Sometimes we see what a player can be differently. But we both watched Aaron Banks. We said, what the hell? I don't get it. He's not a fit for what Kyle Shanahan does. So I think the offense might be changing a little bit. But at the same time, I think if the offense skews a little bit more power, a little bit more inside zone instead of outside zone, that type of thing, I think they're also trying to get Aaron Banks to slide a little bit more to the classic Kyle Shanahan offensive lineman who can get outside and do some of those things and hit people on the move and maybe be a little bit more athletic because according to reports, Aaron Banks is much slimmer. His body fat percentage, according to Matt Barrows here, is lower and his stamina is higher. And he is said to be quicker as well this spring, and he's basically made it his focus all off season long, leading up to OTAs here to work on his strength and conditioning with the strength and conditioning coaching staff to be quicker, be leaner. And I think that's huge for Aaron Banks because it's really important in Kyle Shanahan's offense because I just don't think he was at all a fit coming out of college. And I didn't see the fit, and it was clear he wasn't a fit last year. So he's going to need that. So that's really important. And it's a really good sign he's putting in the work.
Yeah, I mean, you got to learn how to be a professional and obviously learn what they want from you. You know, we've talked about some of the other players and what would be expected of them and maybe how their exit meeting went with the 49ers. And I bet with Aaron Banks, it was like, look, if you don't, drop some weight, take this thing serious, take care of your body and really perfect your craft in the offseason, you're probably not going to be a part of what we're doing moving forward. And it sounds like, from all reports and what's going on now and how he looked and kind of reshaping himself, he took that very serious.
Yeah.
And really, he needed to, because again, we saw what we saw coming out of Notre Dame and what they were telling us were completely different things. They said this was a guy that could move very well for how big he was, but everything that we saw on film, and again, like you said, you watched it, I watched it separately, and then you just asked me about it, and our notes were the same. It was a guy that could not move and looked like he did not fit at all. And for a school like Notre Dame, which I'm assuming does a lot of power stuff, I didn't even think he fit what they did very well. Now, I think I saw some grading stuff go well, but
that's what's funny. And both of those, both of the day 2 picks last year for the 49ers, Aaron Banks and Trey Sermon, their teams in college run a lot of zone stuff. And so the thing was, they run this % zone, so he's a good fit. But it's like, nah, you can't go by that. You got to watch the film. And is he a good fit for what the 49ers do? And I didn't really see it with either guy that much. And I like Sermon. I think he's a good player and he had good feet. But I was just like, he's not quite the guy who's really been explosive and super productive in Kyle Shanahan's offense. But I think he would have been fine. I didn't love the trade up for him in the 3rd round as a running back. But I didn't think he was terrible. But I thought Banks was just not a good fit. He wasn't good at taking more than a couple steps away from where he was at. He was just a big wall, basically. And so he's got to be able to move better, even if the 49ers do go more power, do go more inside zone, do some other things on offense with Trey Lance at quarterback than they had been doing in the past. They're still going to do a lot of outside zone. They're still going to need athletic offensive lineman, and he's going to have to get better at those things. And so we'll see what that ends up looking like when he's taking on those blockers, and when he's got Arik Armstead coming at him with full pads on, and when he's in the preseason. It's going to be fun because that's one of the wide open competitions, I think, in training camp.
Well, I'm a big believer in player development. So, we can have an analysis of a player and kind of what we're seeing on film and how that translates to the 49ers and think that does not fit well. But the guy, he's going to have the opportunity to, I don't want to say prove us wrong, but change the narrative based on the work that he puts in. So, it sounds like right now he's working on changing that narrative.
Yeah, and just because you're one thing coming out of college when you're 22 years old doesn't mean you're going to be that thing when you're 23, 24, 30 years old, Croc. You're not the same thing you were when you were 22. You're not even the same kind of host you were 1 year ago when you jumped on me with Locked On 49ers, and I think I've gotten better with you around. I think you've gotten better with me around, and that's what it's all about, growth, getting better every single day. And that's one of the huge things you have to ask for. That's one of the things that 49ers front office looks for when they draft players, and when they've done a lot, when they've hit on guys, they've drafted players that are built the right way, that work hard, that have that mentality. And if he's smart and tough, he's going to figure it out. And so that's the plus side of what Aaron Banks could be. And some of the stuff we saw that we didn't like is the fit. That doesn't take any of that stuff into account, right? So he's going to be able to write his own story of what kind of player he's going to be for the 49ers. Speaking of that, actually, this is a perfect segue because a player that's really changed his narrative and is much different. I mean, he's thought of completely differently as he was after his first couple of years with the 49ers. And that is one Arik Armstead, who's getting another award for some of his off-field and on-field attitude, really. And it's how you're wired. It's how you're built. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Arik Armstead getting the Dwight Clark. What is the name of the award? The Dwight Clark. I want to get the name of the award right. The Dwight Clark Award. Okay, it's the Dwight Clark Award on behalf of the Golden Heart Fund. We'll get to that next. How about rockauto.com? This episode brought to you by our friends at Rock Auto, who have an amazing selection and have helped me out and helped me save a ton of money this week on my very last trip in my move. When I was moving back across from Central California to the Bay Area. Once again, happy to be home back in the Bay. Just a couple of short minutes from the Golden Gate Bridge, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm loving life right now. Just jammed into the city last night. It took no time. And I was able to jam into the city in my car because it was no longer broken. There was no longer a fender flapping around in the wind because I went to rockauto.com, found the part I needed for $40. It was cheap. I saw a little video online how to fix it. Boom, boom, pop in some rivets. It was super easy. I was blown away because I'm not a car guy, and I was able to fix this, pretty major part on this car that was really important. And I wouldn't even have known about. I wouldn't even known to try to do this if it wasn't for Rock Auto and telling you guys all the time about rockauto.com. And they actually can help you save a ton of money, not only for just the part and the upcharge for the part if I went to a chain store or a car dealership, but the man hours and what they would have charged me. It would not have a car for 3 days, would even have it in stock. There's a shortage of supply for car parts. They'd be like, oh, we can't get this part for 3 weeks, But I went to rockauto.com. They had it, boom, boom, and it was sent to me immediately. They're going to charge you 50%, 100% more for the same parts at a chain store or a car dealership. So go to rockauto.com right now, a family business that's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are always reliably low, and they have just an amazing selection of just about every part you can imagine, big or small, for your car or truck. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and make sure you write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Congratulations to Arik Armstead, who is the recipient of the Dwight Clark Award on behalf of the Golden Heart Fund. And what is the Dwight Clark Award, you ask? Well, it is an award that goes to a 49ers player who exemplifies the team-first attitude of Dwight Clark, with the emphasis on being reliable, resilient, and respectful. So congratulations to Arik Armstead. And he's always, one of those guys that's vying for the Man of the Year award, does so much in his old hometown of the Sacramento area. So tons of stuff off the field. He puts a ton of work on the field. And Croc, we were just talking about Aaron Banks and, and maybe Arik Armstead made more of an impact early in his career than Aaron Banks did as a rookie. But man, remember how often Arik Armstead was injured and people were calling him a bust, and it took him a couple years. It wasn't even year one. It was through year two. And it wasn't until like year 3, year 4, 2019, all of a sudden.
No, I think even year 3, he was fighting through some of these injuries and things like that. I believe it was like year 4 where he had a good year, and they had picked up his 5th-year option, and then he played well again, and that's when he earned a big contract.
I'm going to it right now because, it took a while. It took a long time, man. And so he did play all 16 games in year 1. He only started 1 game, though. Then he missed half the season in year 2 in 2016, played only 8 games. Then he played only 6 games in year 3. So he didn't start a full season until his 4th year in the league, 2018. He started 16 games, and guess what? He has started every single game since. 16 games, 16 games, 16 games, and then 17 games last year. So he's gone from the guy who was often injured. Is this guy going to be a bust? Is he a waste of a first-round draft pick? Only
not is this guy. I think people were really writing him off. No, they were writing him off as a bust.
And then shows up with 10 sacks in 2019, gets paid, and he's played, just about every snap asked of him. And started every game from 2018 for 4 straight years through 2021, even adding that extra game last year, 6 sacks in 2021 in 17 starts. So, when you're looking at a player and how a guy can turn things around, and the talent was all the same from 2015, 2016, Arik Armstead to 2018, Arik Armstead, right? And he could have even been working hard and just had some bad luck and had some injuries throughout those times.
You talked about the 3rd year. Do you remember what the injury was? I want to say it was like fractured pinky, or he did something to his hand, and that made him like miss all but 6 games for that year. I mean, it was a lot of bad luck.
It was, there were weird injuries, right? And I think that was part of it, because a fan hears, what defensive lineman with a pinky? Who cares? Wrap it up. Why are you missing any games, right? So I think that was kind of part of it too, is people were like, oh, they were questioning whether he even, had the desire to play through that kind of thing.
I think he, would have played if he could. One thing I've kind of learned about him, and, you talk about him winning this award and just the person that he is, the man that he is, how he carries himself throughout Sacramento, like his impact on the community. I've been a part of camps where he was there and, showed up and like showed love. And I talked to him afterwards, and, he has like this like little relationship with my son because of my son's stepdad. And like, awesome. Like, he's great with my son. My son loves Arik Armstead, so, I mean, dude's is just a great person on and off the field. And I think that the 49ers have done a really good job of drafting these high character players that end up playing extremely well. Now, Buckner on the way out, but, they traded him away. It still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but Armstead, I think he exemplifies some of the same things. Obviously, not maybe the elite status of a DeForest Buckner, but definitely a really good football player.
Yeah, and you can't expect him to necessarily have 10 sacks every year, like he did in 2019. But he's been a good player, and great in the community off the field. And one thing I've noticed, and I don't know how true this is, but it just seems like he's really the injury stuff aside, he's sort of come into his own with his personality too, because he was a pretty quiet guy earlier on. You could tell how some guys are like, kind of shy away from the microphone, don't really want to say too much in interviews. And I think he's gotten a lot better at just being more comfortable in his own skin and becoming like sort of a leader of a player instead of, and you got to think about it. Like, he didn't come in 2017 with a gutted roster either. He came in, like, think about all the guys and all the personalities on the roster in 2015 too, when Arik Armstead was drafted, right? They didn't need him to come in and be a leader in that locker room. And that was kind of a crazy locker room. Guys were retiring. coaching changes. What a weird time to be drafted by the 49ers, right? So I think stability with the franchise and stability with him kind of all came together at the same time. Croc, how long is your 49ers all-time draft big board right now? Because I've been working on it really hard over the last 24 hours since finding out I'm be drafting third in our all-time 49ers draft. I'm even putting together a little mock draft on the side too. So how much work did you put in? How big is your big board right now? Your draft,
maybe I need to.
you got to have at least 2 names on it.
Well, I think what it was I knew off top who I was drafting at number 2, but now I don't know. Kind of throws things off a little bit. I might have to start thinking about putting together my own little 49ers big board.
No, you better. You got to be prepared, man. Because
just draft BPA, best player available.
Best player available. Well, you can't double up too much on positions. You're not be able to fill out all 22 starting spots.
Oh, yeah, nah, I got that. I feel like I'm gonna. I mean, I know I'm gonna dominate. That's not the part that I'm like worried about.
You might
dominate. Will agree. Yeah, Nick already. I mean, he talking about not taking a quarterback. So, like, I will make things miserable for him if he does not take quarterback at number 1.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait for the Locked On 49ers all-time draft, which will be starting this coming Wednesday. I do want to thank everybody for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. I want everybody on YouTube to go into the comments, congratulate Croc on 1 year here as officially being a member of Locked On 49ers. It's been an awesome year. It's been a lot of fun with you guys every day. Make sure you're tuned in. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel on YouTube or whatever your preferred podcast provider is. Make sure you're checking out all the rest that the Locked On Podcast Network has to offer, including Crocker on Locked On NFL Draft. And I'm doing the Peacock and Williamson NFL show with my co-host, former NFL scout Matt Williamson, every day here talking about the league on the Locked On Podcast Network. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.